everyone, it's Hailey, and today I'm going to be talking about some of the books that I am hoping to read in May. Now I will have a timestamp down below for when I get into the books because there are a couple of things that I want to talk about before I actually get into that. One of them is that April was an absolute failure. I'm filming this in the middle of April. Actually, it's April 20th right now, so not even the middle, but I just finally picked up a book for the first time in April. I feel like I read Lovely War. That was the last book that I finished, and that was at the end of March or the very beginning of April, but I think it was the end of March that I ended up reading that one. But I finally have picked up a book again. April just ended up being a complete failure because I'm kind of getting used to this new normal that we're living in, and for that reason, I found it very difficult to be focusing on reading, and I felt like every single book that I tried picking up never piqued my interest and I never got absorbed in the story. So I just kind of gave up. I wasn't even listening to audiobooks. I tried listening to Starless Sea for so long and I kept on having to restart it because my mind would wander to a million other things. Reading just was not in the cards for me in April, but I'm picking up a book and I feel great about it. I feel like I can finally get back to it, and I really do want to get back to reading. Somewhere along the way with the pressures of BookTube, I don't want to say I fell out of love with reading because that's not true, but I felt the need to read things that I didn't truly want to read, if that makes sense. I don't really know how to describe it, but unfortunately, that's one of the side effects of BookTube is that I feel like I have to be reading more popular books, and it's not that I necessarily always do. Like, I constantly feel like I'm reading stuff that people don't really talk about that often rather than the more popular stuff. Basically, I fell into a rut of feeling guilty whenever I wasn't reading. And there's a problem with that, obviously, because I shouldn't feel like reading's a chore, but that's kind of what it became because love it or hate it, this is my job, and reading is a part of that job. But it became so much a part of that job that it made me not want to do it anymore. I honestly don't know if I'm making sense, but basically now I'm finally getting back to a place where I do want to pick up books, and I think part of that is because of books like Wolf by Wolf and Lovely War. I picked them up and fell in love with them. So those books that ended up being such pleasant surprises for me really reignited that love of reading, but unfortunately it happened at a time where it's a really stressful time and it's hard to kind of focus on things because there's so much going on around me, so I'd just constantly be reading the news and everything. But I finally have kind of gotten over that and I feel like I am able to focus, and I have only read 18 books so far this year and I really want to get caught up on my Goodreads goal. I know that seems counterproductive with what I'm saying where reading became a chore, but I think that having a little friendly challenge with myself just personally will motivate me to continue reading and read more. I hope that made sense. I don't know if it really did. I've wanted to kind of do a video about the effects of BookTube on my reading, but I also don't know if I do want to do that video, so I just wanted to talk about it a little bit here. But I did this TBR a little bit differently than last month because it was working really well for me in March. The whole 2 books a week thing was working splendidly, and getting to my TBR challenges was also working really well. But with everything that's going on, I want to kind of put the TBR challenges on hold, and instead I just went to my shelves and was like, what do I want to read? And that's kind of what I picked. So a lot of these do actually have to do with a few videos that I have in the works. One of the things with where BookTube is going is that it's kind of going places where you have to be a fast reader and read a lot to keep up with it, because there's all these secret TBR videos, which I think are great, but it's just never been something that I have enjoyed. But the videos that I have planned right now are kind of secret TBR videos, but not really. Basically, for each genre, I'm reading the top 5 highest rated books on my TBR. So the reason that I decided to do that is because I don't want to be reading average or lower rated books right now. I want to try and get to some books that I think I'm really going to love to kind of keep the momentum and get me out of this sort of slump that I've been in. So I felt like that would actually be a fun idea for a video, and I'm having fun doing it so far, but we'll see how it ends up going. But A few of the books on here pertain to that, but there's also just some that I have been interested in. So without further ado, let's just get into my TBR. I actually wanted to start off by talking about a couple of books that I have ordered that haven't come in quite yet. I also have some pre-orders that might be coming in because May is kind of the month of new books. A ton of new books come out in May, especially that first week of May. So I know for sure this TBR list is kind of going to change a little bit as those books come out, but I still think that I will probably stick to a lot of these. But the two books that I have ordered already are out. I just haven't gotten them yet. But the first one is After Alice by, oh, I don't even know who it's, no, it's not After Alice. I always do that. What's it called? I am having all of the struggles right now. I thought I was prepared, but I'm not. Alice by Heart by Stephen Sater. After Alice is the one by Gregory Maguire that I read. But Alice by Heart is a book that came out recently, and I saw it and I was like, oh cool, it's an Alice in Wonderland book. But then I saw it was based on a musical, so then I don't know why, but that kind of made me a little bit less interested in it. But then I also thought it was adult, so that kind of made me a little bit less interested in it. I honestly don't know why, because that doesn't make sense, but it just didn't seem like something I wanted to pick up at the moment. But then when I actually went and read the synopsis for it, I immediately went and ordered it because I was like, oh my god, I need this in my life. One, it's not YA. Two, it is based on an off-Broadway musical, which does sound really cool. Like, I would love to see the musical. I think it's because I didn't like Dear Evan Hansen, the adaptation into a novel, so maybe that's why. I'm just trying to justify my brain right now, which there's no hope for. But this is a historical fiction, and it's about Alice in Wonderland. So it's this girl who lives in London, I believe, during World War II, and she is holding onto her copy of Alice in Wonderland to try and survive and give her hope during the Blitz. I was just like, everything about that sounds fascinating, and I love the idea of tying the escapism of Wonderland and like creating a whole story around it. Oh my goodness, it just like completely hooked me in with just reading the like top line of the synopsis. I think I was like, wow, I need this in my life immediately. So I will probably be reading that book the second it shows up on my doorstep because oh my goodness, it sounds so good. So that just goes to show, like, I wasn't even judging the book by its cover, but like I can't judge it by like two small facts about it. I need to look more into it and see if it's something that I'm going to like. I do have pretty high expectations for it now, I'm not gonna lie, and I'm hoping that it will live up to those because it just sounds so dang good. The other book that I ordered is They Went Left by Monica Hesse, which I didn't know was coming out. Like, what? Monica Hesse is the author of The Girl in the Blue Coat, which is a World War II historical fiction, and it's one of my favorites, and I didn't know that she had another book coming out, but it came out at the beginning of April, and it is also a World War II historical fiction, but I don't really know anything else about it, to be honest. I just kind of was like, I love the author, so I know I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna look up some information now, actually, because I feel bad not actually telling you anything of what it's about. So it's set in Germany in 1945, and is about a girl who has been recently liberated from a concentration camp, and it looks like she is on a journey to go and find her brother. So her and her younger brother were the only members of their family to be sent to the right, away from the gas chambers of Auschwitz-Birkenau. Everyone else in her family went left, and her last words to her brother were a promise. When they found each other again, they would fill their alphabet. The journey ends up taking her through Poland and Germany and into a displaced persons camp where everyone she meets is trying to piece together a future from a painful past. So it seems like it's going to be a lot of characters. I apologize for just reading that, but I did want to give you a little bit of what the book is about. But it seems like it's going to be the backstory of a lot of characters who are trying to put their lives back together again. And I think that sounds really interesting because I don't think I've ever read anything where it deals with the aftermath of like the direct aftermath of being in a concentration camp. I've only read books where it deals with actually being there. So it kind of brings to mind Night by Elie Wiesel. Like, I feel like the haunting image of him after being in a concentration camp is something that I'll never forget. So that's kind of what it makes me think of, but I'm definitely way more intrigued by it reading that synopsis. I think it's going to be a difficult read, but definitely a very impactful one as well. Now getting into the rest of the TBR, honestly, there's no real rhyme or reason to this. They are just on a stack, on my desk, and I'm just gonna pick them up. So first is I Kissed Alice by Anna Birch. This has illustrations in it, which is definitely a fun little thing that always makes me want to read a book even more. I love when books go that little extra step It just, I don't know, something about it just really immerses me in the story. I Kissed Alice is a female-female romance, and it is about these two characters who are rivals in real life. They are both trying to make it at their art school, and they're both very talented artists, but online they don't really know that it's each other, but they have this great relationship that is developing. I love the idea of art in this, and I love that competitive sort of thing that's going on where they don't know that they actually really like each other. I think that it's going to be a super cute story. And this book is coming out May 26th, so by the end of the month you will be able to get your hands on a copy. Next is Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling. So I started my reread of the Harry Potter series, I think it was in July of last year, but then I stopped with the reread because of Bookmas and Christmas and all of that stuff, but I haven't gotten back to it yet, and I would really like to. I think my hesitation with wanting to pick this up, because I almost did earlier this week, but I was like, no, I should read some new books. I feel bad rereading stuff right now because one of the reasons why I want to try and read more is because I feel like I talk about a lot of the same books in my videos, and I know I do. It's because I love raving about books that I love. So since I've only read so many books that I loved, I can only talk about so many books, but I always want to be expanding that list of books that I can talk about. So since that has been something I've been wanting to work on, I really don't want to be rereading something that I've read before. I would rather read a new title, but then at the same time, I'm like, I also have been in a Harry Potter mood and I do want to continue with this reread. So maybe after I finish a few books that are new to me, I will pick this up again and be listening to a new to me audiobook on the side. I feel like then I will feel a little bit less guilty, but I want to finish this reread. I don't want to just read the first 4 books and then have to start all over again. I want to continue with it because it has been so long, and I think that from book 5 and on, or maybe even book 4 and on, I've only ever listened to the audiobook, so I think it's high time that I physically read them. Next up is Traitor Angels by Anne Blankman. I don't know how I haven't read this yet. So Anne Blankman is the author of one of my favorite historical fiction duologies, the Prisoner of Night and Fog duology, which I've talked about quite a few times, so if you haven't heard about it yet, go and check it out. It is awesome, and this is the only other book that she has, I think. I don't think she's come out with anything else, but this also came out quite a while ago. I'm not exactly sure when. I want to say it was like 2016. So I have had a long time to read this, and somehow I haven't, but it deals with John Milton. Is that who? Yeah. So it is the daughter of John Milton, and that's what the whole story is surrounding. I know a little bit about John Milton just from being an English major. I heard about him in school all the time. It's not really the era of poetry or writing that interests me that much, but I am still kind of fascinated about a whole historical fiction surrounding his daughter. Obviously, Paradise Lost is really iconic, so I feel like that will probably be brought into this a lot, and I'm definitely intrigued by it. So I don't know why I've put it off for so long, but with me being in quite a historical fiction mood lately, I think that it might be time. Next is Alex Approximately by Jenn Bennett. This is, I believe, the only other Jenn Bennett title that I have on my TBR. I have read The Anatomical Shape of the Heart, which I liked a lot, and then last month I read Starry Eyes. And Starry Eyes I expected to like a lot more than I did, but that is neither here nor there. We are here to talk about this book. This book is all about a girl who is super into classic movies. I have to say that is one thing that Jenn Bennett does. She gives her characters very interesting hobbies and interests. Like, classic movies isn't that out there, but I do feel like a lot of times you read about these characters who don't have hobbies or interests, but there's always a focus on that in her books, and this one is no exception. So she's a classic film geek, and she has this guy online that is also a film geek that she gets along with really, really well. Now, they used to live on opposite coasts until she ends up moving to California, but she's too scared to tell him that she has moved because she's worried about what it would be like actually meeting in real life, and she ends up getting this job at this movie theater, and there's this guy there that she starts to get along with, and I don't want to say that like people commenting kind of spoiled me on things, but I go into books like not really thinking about things, which sounds like I'm dumb, but like I just go into them and I read the story. That's why like with mysteries I never guess anything, because I'm not really trying to put together the pieces. I'm not thinking that far ahead. What I'm about to say might be considered a minor spoiler for you guys. I haven't read this book yet, but I'm going to talk about something that you guys commented that I think might be a spoiler, so if you don't want to hear it, mute me until I don't have this book in my hands anymore. But someone like suggested, actually quite a few of you commented suggesting that the guy who she's working with at the movie theater that she doesn't like and she's not getting along with, and it's kind of an enemies to lovers sort of thing, it seems like the setup for, is probably the same guy that she's with online. And I was like, you know what, it probably is, and I never thought of that. But now the whole time reading it, I'm going to think of that. Nonetheless, I am still excited to read it, but now I feel like I know what's gonna happen, which kind of sucks. Now, it has been a little bit since I've read any adult romance, so I feel like I can include a couple on this TBR. So next is Say You Still Love Me by K.A. Tucker. This, I think, I might really like. Now, I was going to include it in my top 5 highest rated books of romance in that TBR, but there was another book by the same author that was rated a little bit higher, so I have that one there instead. But I do still really want to read this one because so many of you guys have recommended it to me, because one of my favorite romance tropes is second chance romance, and this features that. So it's about characters who they used to go to camp together and then they meet each other again, and her name, what was her name? Piper. So she realizes that her feelings are still stronger than ever, and I'm just like, yeah, they are, girl. Like, I don't know what it is about second chance romance that I love so much, but it's definitely one of my favorite tropes, and I enjoyed Simple Wild by the same author, so I do have high hopes for this one. Speaking of adult romance, next is Undercover Bromance by Lyssa K. Adams. This is the next book in the Bromance book club. Is that what the series is called? I don't know, but the first book was the Bromance book club, and I had so much fun reading that book. I really enjoyed it, so I'm excited for the sequel, especially knowing which characters it follows. They're definitely characters, particularly the love interest. The male is the one who interests me the most, but I'm also interested to hear a little bit more about, I forget her name from the other book, but her sister is the main character in this one as well, so I'm interested to learn a little bit more about her, even though she is kind of annoying, but I think that this could be a lot of fun. I have no idea what kind of book they're reading. Looks like a kind of spy novel thing, but basically, if you don't know, it's this whole book club where Nashville's elite men meet and they read romance books to try and figure out how to treat their wives nicely, I guess. I don't think I described that very well. Like, it sounds kind of weird, but honestly, it's the setup for a lot of fun and just cuteness, and I really enjoyed the first book, like I've said 6 million times now, so hopefully this one will also be good. I apparently don't know how to talk about books anymore. Next is a book that I am giving one last final chance. Last final is redundant, but it truly is its last final chance because I've given this book a lot of chances and I'm kind of just like done with it. So next is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. So I mentioned this in my books I might finally read because I have to stay home anyways video, and I said how I've tried to read it multiple times, and a lot of you guys were like, try the audiobook, try this, try that, and I have tried the audiobook. I've tried this, I've tried that, and it just hasn't worked for me, but for some reason I'm so hesitant to let this book go, and I don't know why. I think it's because a lot of you guys love it so much. I know it has such a huge fan base, and it's one of those situations where I'm like, what am I missing out on? Because I feel like there's something I'm missing when I'm reading it. So I'm going to give it another shot, but this is going to be the last shot. I'm going to try and physically read it, and a big part of the reason why I'm trying this one is because it is one of the highest rated fantasies on my list by far. So I feel like I have to try it, but I will not hesitate to DNF it if it still isn't working. I'm not going to push myself through and make myself finish it. I know a lot of people say like, oh, the first 200 pages, so like maybe after the first 200 pages I'll see how I end up liking it, but no further than that. If I'm still not liking it, it is done. It has had all its chances. I have given it a fair shot, and unfortunately it just won't be for me. But this is the month we're gonna see, because I'm tired of this sitting on my TBR and like not knowing if I've liked it or if I haven't. I just need to give up and make a decision already, which we all know is very difficult for me. Next up is a sequel that I have been dying to read, but simultaneously I suck with sequels. We know this by now. I'm just horrible with them. So This one, unfortunately, is no exception, and that is Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. I was so excited for this book to come out. Skyward was one of my favorite books that I read in 2019. I fell in love with the world and the story and the characters, and I actually started reading this at one point. But then, was I participating in a readathon or something? I don't really know why, but I was like, yep, no more. For some reason, I just stopped reading it, but it was really nice for those first like 30 or so, or however many pages I read. It was nice to be back with the witty banter, like I fell right into the story and was having a lot of fun reading it. So I'm not quite sure why I stopped. I could not tell you, but I think that I just need to read it. I need to work on my sequel issues because it is a real problem, but I was kind of thinking about it, and I think the reason that I don't like reading sequels is because I kind of am done with something after like the first book. I don't know if this makes any sense, but I kind of want to move on to something else. So I think about movies, and I don't really like watching movies that much. I find it very difficult to find movies that interest me because I just want to be doing other things. Like I want to be seeing something else. This makes literally no sense because now I'm thinking like a book series is more like TV shows than it is like movies. But TV shows I like, but I also don't like a lot of TV shows. I'm just gonna stop freaking talking right now. Oh my god. Basically, my thought process was that I don't really like watching movies because it's the same story, but it's really long and I get bored. So maybe that's the thing with series, but like, it's like a TV show more so. Okay. Anyways, next is The Librarian of Auschwitz by Antonio Iturbe, translated by Lilith Thwaites. I've included this book on way too many TBRs. Way too many. I've had it for so long now. Since it first came out, I remember I was working at the bookstore then and I saw it and I was like, that sounds amazing, beautiful, and tragic, and like it's going to be a very powerful read, and it's something that I want. So I picked it up right away, but I haven't actually picked it up to read it yet. Now, a lot of you guys have been saying, since I loved The Lovely War so much, I feel like quite a few of you guys have commented about this book saying that I'm gonna have the same feelings, like how did I wait so long to read it and pick it up? So that definitely makes me want to pick it up more, and the historical fiction mood definitely makes me want to pick it up more, so I'm hoping that I will be able to get to this one before that mood is over. But this is actually based on a true story of Auschwitz prisoner Dita Kraus, and she risks her life to keep the magic of books alive during the Holocaust. And I think that just sounds like it's going to be such a beautiful and poignant story. It's definitely going to be a difficult read, one that I'll have to be in the right mindset for, but I think once I am in that mindset, it'll be the first thing that I reach for. Next is Graceling by Kristin Cashore. I'm pretty sure I included this on my TBR for April. That just went completely out the window. Another book that I included there that I might get to this month is Crescent City, or what's it actually called? House of Earth and Blood. I don't know if I'll actually get to that. That's very dependent on my mood and how I'm feeling about things, but Graceling I'm definitely going to try and get to because I think this might be an easier fantasy to break me back into the genre, and once again it is one of the highest rated ones. So particularly with fantasy, I feel like a good way to get me back into that genre is going to be reading the ones that are higher rated, that I feel like in turn I might have a higher chance of liking. Like, it's not that other people's opinions are going to influence me, it's just more so like I find that a lot of times higher rated books I tend to agree with the rating, but also like there's situations where a lot of the higher rated books I don't agree with. So it doesn't really mean anything, it just, I don't know, it gives me a little bit more hope that it might be something that I'll enjoy. I'm very babbly today, I apologize, but Graceling is a romantic fantasy and it deals with a girl who has the power to kill people. She can kill a man by the age of 5. Was it? Wow. So Katza has been able to kill a man with her bare hands since she was 8. Who knows? I don't really know what that means, but apparently that's her power as a Graceling, and I'm gonna have to read it to figure out more about what that actually means. It is in this moment that I'm realizing I picked a lot of books for this video. Basically my TBRs are kind of just like books that I might get to, but like who really knows, and yeah. This one is no exception. Next is The Honey Don't List by Christina Lauren. This is the latest release by Christina Lauren, which I super want to get to because it's kind of ridiculous that I haven't yet. Christina Lauren is my favorite romance author duo, but I think why I've kind of been putting this one off a little bit is because I've been trying to read things other than adult romance, one, and two is because Twice in a Blue Moon, their last release, I had mediocre feelings about, so I'm kind of worried that it might be the same situation here, but I'll never know if I don't start reading it. So it's about two characters and they work with this duo that is basically like Chip and Joanna Gaines. They're like HGTV stars, but they actually don't get along in real life. I'm not saying that's Chip and Joanna, I have no idea, but this fictional HGTV couple doesn't actually get along in real life, but they're going on book tour and it is up to these two characters. One's an engineer, so I don't really know how he fits in there, but the other one is their PR agent or something, but they go on this book tour and they have to keep them together because they both need their jobs still and they just have to hold this sinking ship. I don't know where that sentence went. Next is The War Outside by Monica Hesse. Like I mentioned, Monica Hesse wrote The Girl in the Blue Coat and the book that I talked about earlier in this video, which literally feels like it was like weeks ago, but I've had this book by her for so long and I have actually been meaning to pick it up recently. I might pick it up before this video. I'm kind of thinking it might be what I read after finishing The Fountains of Silence, which is what I'm currently reading, but we shall see. Don't really know. I might also pick up The Librarian of Auschwitz. I'm not sure. We're just going with the flow, going with my mood. It's whatever. But this deals with two characters who are in an internment camp during World War II in Texas, I believe is the location of the camp. Yes, Crystal City, Texas. So they meet at Crystal City in the high school there, and one is German, one is Japanese, and it is just about their relationship and their day-to-day lives in these camps. We have 3 more books to talk about and then I promise I'll shut up. So next is Summer of Salt by Katrina. Leno. I am going to admit I don't know what this book is about, but it is one of the highest rated contemporaries on my TBR, and it's also one that I have heard a lot of good things about. I think it might have a magical realism element to it, but I'm not entirely sure about that. On the island of By the Sea, you could always smell 2 things, salt and magic. I think there might be magic. Oh, so stupid. So I love the mix of magic with that realistic fiction. That's one of my favorite things to read about, and I haven't read one in a while, so definitely excited for this one. Next is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This book seems to have very polarizing opinions because I feel like whenever I mention it, people either say I'm going to love it or I'm going to hate it, or they loved it or they hated it. Like there's no one who really falls in the middle. This isn't a retelling. I thought it was, but it's not. I think it's just like its own fantasy, but it's one of the highest rated fantasies on my TBR, so that's why it has shot its way up here. But it also has been a book that I've been wanting to read for a while, especially because I'm hoping I like it because the cover's beautiful, but also because I want to read Spinning Silver. So I don't know if they're related at all or if they just have covers that match. Not entirely sure, but I kind of lean toward the good reviews for this one because I feel like it might be something that I will like. I think it's like a new fantastical fairy tale fantasy. That was a lot of words that didn't really make sense, but like in my head I understood what I meant, so hopefully you got it too. And the final book on this long TBR is Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore. This is a historical adult romance, which I haven't really read any historical adult romances. I think I read only one, and that was for a book club that I do with a couple of my friends, but I haven't read one where I've just kind of picked it up from just seeing it around and wanting to pick it up. But my friend who is in that book club who really loves historical adult romance read this and loved it, so I definitely think that I might really like it, and I think it might be a good one to break me into that genre. And it also is one of the highest rated adult romances on my TBRs, so that definitely made me want to read it. And also there's another book in this series, so it's A League of Extraordinary Women, that is coming out soon. It's set in the 1800s at Oxford University, and it just is about a girl. She's one of the first female students at Oxford. I thought that, but I wanted to read to make sure. I know it seems like I'm unprepared for this video, but honestly, usually I have a couple of notes about the books, but I just went and was like on my shelves and was like, I think I want to read you and you and you. So like I thoughtfully chose them, but I also didn't really take notes, so I am a little bit unprepared. But yeah, those are all the books that are on my May TBR. I have no clue how May is going to go, but I am hoping so strongly that it is going to go a lot better than April did. I want to try and catch up on those 11 books that I'm presently behind on my Goodreads challenge. I want to start reading again. I just like at some point stopped, and I feel like it doesn't seem like that to you guys, but like I stopped reading as much as I used to because instead of going to pick up a book when I had some free time, I would be so tired that I would just like go and play Animal Crossing or go and play Sims. But now I feel finally like reading is kind of what I want to do when I have a little bit of spare time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you have read any of these books, your thoughts on them, and also what is on your May TBR. I would love to know. I hope you guys are doing well and staying safe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!